Hey there. Welcome to the Author's Way podcast, the journey to finding your voice. My name is Jennifer Wright, and I am your podcast host. So we have a great interview today with Tyler Wagner. He is the owner of a company called Authors Unite. He helps authors to get into the process and get through the process of writing a book, everything from the writing, ghostwriting, to editing, to book design, all the way through marketing, getting your book, working on getting your book on the New York Times bestseller list, and then going the next step. After you become a bestseller, the next step of then what you do with that from a marketing and media perspective. So we're going to have a great conversation today. He's going to share with us some information about what it takes to become a bestseller, what it means to become a bestseller, and what you can do with that to help grow your book, help grow your business, or get yourself out into the market. So it's going to be a great conversation. I'm looking forward to it. We'll be doing that next, but first, I wanted to share with you a little bit about the sponsor today. This podcast is sponsored by Execuwright. We are a book publishing and book writing firm. We help business owners and professionals to raise their professional profile, to increase their credibility out in the market, and to get their words out into the world by writing and publishing their books. So if you have a book in your head, in your heart, in your soul, and you want to get it out into the world and you're not sure how to get started or you're not sure how to finish, take a look at our website. That's execuwright.com. That's EXECUWRIGHT.com. Take a look at our program. Schedule a strategy session with us. I would love to hear your story and hear what you've got going on and see what we can do to help. Again, that's execuwright.com. And now let's have a conversation with Tyler. All right. Hi, Tyler. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
I am really excited about having a conversation about you with you. I get a lot of questions about the publishing process, and then specifically things like, how do I become a bestseller? What do I do? How do I market my book? How do I get my book, sold? How do I use my book? So I think you have a lot of expertise in this area, and I'm real happy that you're here and can share some of that with us. So do you want to start out by just telling the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I could start. I'll kind of give the origin story of how I started the business and then what we do. So basically I was 19 and at 19, and actually I'll leave the book until later, so I'm not going to say the book yet.
Okay.
But so I was 19, I made a decision to drop out of college, and actually I wrote my first book shortly after. And the reason is because I actually wanted to be a public speaker. And I thought the only way for people to take, a 19-year-old dropout seriously would for me to be a best-selling author. And I had also came to the realization from going to multiple events that a lot of speakers were best-selling authors. So it just kind of like clicked for me that was not a necessary prerequisite, but it made the process easier if you went that route first. So I launched a book called Conference Crushing, became a bestseller on Amazon. This was like 11 years ago. And then what happened after that is people just started asking me how I did it. So 10, 11 years later, I run a company called Authors Unite, where we write, edit, publish, and market books for people. And then we have things that we also offer our clients after the fact to help them like grow their companies online. So that's what it is. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Yeah, that's a great story. So you've been in the business for quite a few years, so you've seen a lot of things change, I imagine. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen since you've been doing this?
Yeah, so well actually that kind of perfectly leads into the bestseller list is like
Mhm.
that's one of the biggest things I've seen because that's what we're known for in the industry is a lot of publishers and other companies that work with authors, they refer to us to do that specific tasks for their clients like PR agencies and stuff. So Amazon bestseller 10, 11 years ago was a way bigger deal than it is now. And I think the reason for that is, and to be clear to the audience, I think becoming an Amazon bestseller is still better than not being a
Mhm.
bestseller. So definitely do it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just it's kind of been figured out that it's a categorical way of doing things, and you could literally, if you put it in an easy enough category, you could sell like 20 books in a day and become a bestseller. So look, at the end of the day, I'm all about branding and things. So 99% of the world doesn't know that. So it depends how
Right.
you personally feel about it. And you do what you want to do with that information. Like you could put it in an easy category, have 20 of your friends buy it in one day, you're a bestseller. There you go. That's the
Right.
strategy. But regardless, about 6 years ago, I realized that it was becoming less and less of a big deal because of the strategy being kind of figured out, at least by the industry. So what I decided to do was master Barnes and Noble bestseller, USA Today, Wall Street, and New York Times. And still to this day, like some people can do Barnes and Noble, but the other three, I don't really know unless you're already famous. It's very unlikely that
Yeah.
you hit those lists. So that's the biggest change I've seen. It's just like a shift in the bestseller list that people want to hit, and it started with Amazon, and now it's like Wall Street Journal and New York Times. That's a shift I've seen.
Okay. So, so what's kind of the strategy? I mean, how, if those two things are, it sounds like a little bit elusive, for hitting. So what can someone who isn't already famous, I mean, do to help raise their visibility and, raise their chances of being able to get on those lists?
Yeah, so I'll explain. I'll do New York Times last because that one's like completely different than all the other ones.
Mm.
Um, so Barnes and Noble, that one is similar to Amazon in the sense that you might need like 100 to 200 sales in a day, and that's actually like a top 100 list. So that's
Okay.
just how their algorithms work. For USA Today, Wall Street Journal, they work very similar. You really need about 5,000 sales in a week to hit those lists. Depends on the competition of the week, but 5,000 you should be good. 6,000 or more, you're going to hit. And the only difference though is USA Today, you need at least 500 sales in a secondary bookstore. So like if you had like 20,000 sales that just went through Amazon, you'd probably miss USA Today because you don't have 500 plus sales in another bookstore. So when we do our campaigns, let's just say our client gets 10,000 sales in a week. It would look something like 9,000 Amazon, 1,000 Barnes and Noble. They would hit USA Today, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, obviously, and Wall Street Journal. So all four of them. And then Wall Street Journal has various lists. USA Today, I should say, it's a top 150, and it's all genres. So it includes fiction, nonfiction, pretty much everything. Wall Street Journal is broken up into like 6 categories, and they're all top 10. So like top 10 nonfiction ebook, top 10 nonfiction hardcover combined, and then they actually have fiction lists as well. So essentially, though, the tracker for Wall Street Journal, we focus on the nonfiction side. If you're looking in the nonfiction category of Amazon, like the top 10 ebooks in that category for the week, it's almost a direct translation of what the Wall Street Journal is going to be. So if you were to track that, you could predict what the Wall Street the week after is going to be. And how we do it. So the next question logically would be like, how do you get that many sales, right? So the way that we do it and why clients pay us is we have these large email lists, and you probably know some of these lists out there. Have you ever heard of like BookBub or like Bargain?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
what I did, yeah, so you know of them, is like if you go to Google, type in ebook promotion sites, there's thousands of them. Like there's tons of them. Most of them, and I know from losing lots of money trying them out, don't work. They're either a scam or they just don't produce results, one or the other, maybe both. Um, and regardless, though, through trial and error and wasting, a good amount of money, luckily it paid off. But I came to find ones that would consistently like get my clients results. So we would do like an Amazon bestseller campaign, and we'd put it in an easy category, and then we'd wake up the next day and the client would have like 500 sales. And I was like, okay, that wasn't me, that wasn't the client, so it must have been the email list, right? And then I basically collected the founders of, or no, I shouldn't say founder, like the owners of the email list, and was like, look, if I can bring you all under my roof, I think we can start hitting the major lists. And so we don't have to just do like small Amazon campaigns. We can go for the big lists, which are, you can charge a lot of money for that because there's really no competition ultimately. So regardless, that's how we do it. We have email lists in the millions, and we blast books out to them. We discount the ebook to 99 cents for a week, and it just drives sales into the thousands and tens of thousands, and then it hits the list. So that's how those work. And so if you wanted to try to do it on your own, essentially you could do it any marketing you can think of. You just need to figure out a way to get 5,000 sales in a week for Wall Street Journal, and then USA Today, same thing, but 500 plus sales on Barnes and Noble as well. So that's how those work. Now, New York Times, completely different. You can never guarantee it. It's not based on sales alone. Basically, it's complicated. So I'll try to explain it the best I can. So what you'd want to do is like a pre-order campaign, and you start at least 6 months in advance, ideally 9 months to a year. And say if you had like a course, and I'm actually using a client in my mind, I just can't say the name of them, but a course, and you essentially, the course is valued at $1,500, let's say. And we did a pre-order through it, and we said, look, you can get the course for free if you buy the pre-order of the book for $30. And he already had a pretty decent following, so this was like a no-brainer deal for a lot of people. And so we did like affiliate marketing, Facebook ads, clubhouse rooms, like a lot of different things. 21,000 pre-orders came through that website, and we collected the money in a separate account, the customer data, and then you take the money and the name and address of those people, and you process the orders through like 10 different bookstores, sometimes more than 10, but the foundation's like 10. And these are like Books a Million and like boutique New York shops that New York Times looks at. And then he got number 8 on the New York Times list. So same thing as USA Today. If you shot 20,000 sales through Amazon alone, you would not hit the New York Times, most likely. You really want to diversify in certain bookstores. So that's how they all work. That's how it is.
Nice. So you talk about secondary bookstores. So we all know about Barnes and Noble. We all know about Amazon. You mentioned Books a Million. What are some of the other bookstores? Is small, small,
Yeah. So like
locally owned bookstores, do those figure?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%. And what you essentially do is you like contact the bookstore with the name, the money, and the address, and then you process the orders, or well, they process them, but you provide the money and data and then the retail, right, for the book. And then they funnel them through and it sends off to the customer. And what a lot of people do, which if you're going for New York Times, you wouldn't want to do, if it goes through Amazon, then you can't control how the book's processed, right? So you want to take it through the website. And look, it can be, I mean, obviously we have systems built around it now, but it is a logistical nightmare.
I'm sure. It sounds like it. It sounds like it.
It's I don't reckon. I actually steer people away from it most of the time, unless you like are ready to invest multiple 6 figures and like you got to build a brand, build a following, have like features in the media, like what shows up when people Google your name. With the New York Times, everything is in play. Like if they don't like, and you can't necessarily say it's true or not, but let's just say you politically lean right. We can all agree New York Times is more left leaning, right? Like I think that's a fair thing to say. That could be part of the decision. You could actually have like, there's stories out there of people that have gotten like 50,000 sales in a week and they don't hit the New York Times. We don't know for sure, but like everything matched up that they should have hit and then they don't. So you got to be careful about who you are publicly. There's a lot more that goes into it. Whereas Wall Street Journal, you get 5,000 sales, doesn't matter who you are, what comes up when you Google. You could be a criminal, and you'll get on there. Or probably, I don't know. I've never launched a criminal's book, but like maybe.
Is there any value in knowing what other, and this may be hard to plan for, but does it help to know? So for instance, if Anderson Cooper is launching a book that on that same week, if there's other things that are happening at that same time that might prevent you, can you predict, is there anything you can predict that way?
100%. Yeah. So you can look on Amazon and basically just check in the nonfiction category if there's any books that are on pre-order, right? And like when they're releasing, and then you could make decisions based on that for sure. And what I'd say too is there is like seasons typically with this, like in the summer months, June, July, August, those three in particular, they are typically the easiest. There's not that many celebrities launching books around that time frame. So like our clients, even last week, our client hit #1 on the Wall Street Journal. That's way more typical in the summer months. Whereas like November, December, January, February, those is when like a lot of the self-help, the health, because it's like New Year's resolution and holidays and stuff.
Right.
That's going to be way more competitive.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So you do all of this work. It sounds like it's just a big marketing campaign. Yeah. So then what do you then do with it? What's the value of, it's a lot of work that goes into it. What's the payoff?
Yeah, right. So it's interesting, right? And when I get on a call with people, like literally my first question, besides, who you are, where you're from, get to know you. But my first like business question is like, why are you doing this? Or like, what result are you trying to get out of doing this? Because, our prices for this are ranging from 9,500 to 300K. So this is like a lot of money. And I don't want, I've never viewed business as like a short-term thing. So I don't want somebody to pay me and then not be happy with the result. So, right. And the reason I led all the way up to that is like some people, no lie, it's an ego thing. And people, they're like, I just want to put this on my social media. I want to tell my friends I'm a Wall Street Journal bestseller. That's why I'm paying you. And that's it. And that's fair. If that's the reason, here's what's going to happen. You're going to pay 60K and we're going to get on average 10,000 sales, let's say 99 cents. At 99 cents, you make 30% royalty from Amazon. If you have a book publisher, you make less. So you're going to pay 60, you're going to get 2 to 3 grand back. That's it. Not a very good investment. Right. Okay. But if there is a business on the back end, let's say that we have actual case studies. And actually one of my clients, his name's Dan Henry. So I can talk publicly on this one. He interviewed me and his book was a perfect like a funnel that led into a webinar that then sold a $10,000 course. And he 5 times his ROI before he hit the Wall Street Journal, right? So we sent all the traffic to his book. I think he got like 12,000 sales, a couple thousand opt-ins to his email list. And then he had, I believe it was, so 8 times 10,000. It was 25 people, then around 25 bought his $10,000 course, right? So it wasn't from the book sales, but it was because he had hyperlinks in his ebook that our traffic opted into and then became a higher level client. So my point to bringing that up is if you have a business on the back end of the book, then it makes a lot of sense to do this, because the Wall Street Journal bestseller brand, you can use that forever, builds trust with your clientele, and also your readers can become higher level clients.
Right.
So yeah, that's how you use it. If you're a public speaker, I think it's a good thing to do. It makes sense because I've had clients where they used to charge like $5,000 and now they charge 10 to 30 grand for a keynote. What's interesting about that is I think that's how it works, but I also think it's a mental thing. Like once you hit Wall Street Journal bestseller, you feel like you're like worth charging more. So then you do, and then they buy it. Whereas you maybe could have charged that before, you just like didn't feel worthy of it. So it's kind of a mental thing too.
Yeah. Well, and maybe you go after bigger stages too.
Totally. Yeah. Because now you're like, I'm a best-selling author. So now I feel like I should be on that stage.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of ways to leverage it. But to just answer your question on the flip side is like, if you're not going to do anything with it, if this is not going to make you feel better about yourself, ego, if you don't have a business on the back end, if you're not a public speaker and so on, and this is like, you're trying to make money on book sales, terrible idea. Like definitely don't do it. So yeah, that's what I would say about it, because you're just not like, it would take a long time to make your money back on book sales. If you ever do, that's the other part too, is it's not even guaranteed that you will. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. So talk a little bit about expand a little bit more about using a book to grow your business. I talk to a lot of authors, and they're always curious about how am I going to sell my book? Or they'll say things like, I'm not sure I want to write a book because I'm afraid I won't be able to sell it. And we talk a lot about what's the other ROI in a book? How else can you use it? And having that business on the back end, I think is one of the really great ways to use that.
Yeah, I think so. The thing about books, I think, is it's one of the best investments you can make, right? So if you think about it, like a book is anywhere from 99 cents to $20 typically. And if you read, and not every book is of the highest value, but like think about certain books like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon. If you read that whole book and like embody what it teaches you, was that worth $10? I mean, it definitely is worth way more than that. So like the thing with a book that I always tell people is I think you should just deliver as much value as you can in it. Don't try to like hold anything back and be like, hey, read this and then click here, opt in to get the rest. I think give it all away. 99% of people are not going to be able to do it on their own regardless. So provide as much value as possible. And kind of a trick, just to sidestep for a second, most of a book, regardless of what it's about, should be story-based, right? People
agree. Yeah.
So a lot of nonfiction books, they try to be tactical. What you really want to do is have it be like, this sounds a little overkill, but I think it should be like 95% story.
Right.
No
yeah.
And then just sprinkle in the steps that they need to do, but make it mostly about the story. And because that's what happens. People read a story, it like impacts them, and then they share it with their friends, and then it has a life of its own. So yeah, you do that. And then basically from there, you can kind of like use that as your main marketing piece, right? So say you're at an event and there's like 500 people there, and you have a course that's thousands of dollars. 500 people not all 500 people can access that. Like not everybody can afford that, but they can all afford a $10 book. So it becomes basically like your front end, your front facing thing for everything. And then it leads into all your consulting, your courses, your speaking. So that's, I think, the bigger picture is like, it just, it opens a lot of doors, and it just like, it can be the foundation of your entire brand and makes life easier too. Like for me, 19, I was getting paid thousands of dollars to speak on stages, like about networking at conferences. And I did not feel worthy. Like it was literally just the title of best-selling author that changed it. People were like, oh, he's a bestseller, must be legit. And I was like, dude, I just dropped out of college. I don't know anything. Besides the few books I'd read, I just like the perception of that brand is huge. So it's just the way the world works. So it's like you can take advantage of it or not. I think you should, right? I mean, why not? So
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I love the fact of what you're talking about here with really kind of thinking about how the book can serve your business and serve your clients. I am a huge fan of giving information away. And I know a lot of people say, no, don't do that. But I'm a big fan of it because I think it just increases your credibility, increases, your visibility. And, like you said, not everyone is going to be able to do it themselves. They are going to need help. Even if they read the book, cover to cover, they're still going to need help. And that's where your business can really help to provide that for them. So that's great. Yeah. What about any tips you have for the reader on any other marketing tips? How do we really, even if you decide not to go the bestseller route, what are some things that we can do as authors that help to get our name out there more in order to help not only sell the book, but get the books in the hands of your audience and ultimately build your client base using that?
Yeah. So my best method, and we actually have a course on this. It's called Infinite Partnership System, and it's how I grew my business. And basically, it's like thinking of partnerships at scale. So I'll use my own company just because it's the easiest example I can think of. So and just a warning, this might sound a little crazy, so just hear me out though, because it does work. So basically, we discovered that for all of our services, our best partner would be book publishers, ghostwriters, editors, and PR agencies, those 4 types of companies. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because they work with large groups of authors, which is our clientele. So my brain, it's just the way I'm wired, I guess, I don't ever think of going straight to the customer. I'm always trying to think of like, how can I build a partnership with someone that already has like hundreds or thousands of my customers? The trust is already built, and we can mutually like contribute to each other by like referring people to each other. So literally, no lie, for the past probably like, I'm going to get like 5 years or so, we have reached out to like thousands of these types of individuals every week. Right now we're doing about over 1,000 a day of messages to also other job titles. Those are just our top 4, but there's others out there. And we just send a simple message that says potential collaboration. Hey, their name. I noticed we both work with authors. There might be ways we can collaborate. That's all it says. And then let's just say, I don't know the exact stats, but probably around like a 40% response rate, because it kind of perks curiosity. And it's not like a pitch. It's just like, hey, you work with authors, I work with authors, maybe we can do something together. Who knows? So they respond. Then my sales team responds back, sets up a time to talk with them. And we just learn more about them. They learn more about us. And then, from there, we build a referral relationship if it's a fit. So if you do that at scale, like imagine if you had like tens of thousands of partners, right? Then you would wake up every day to, at least like 10 or so referrals probably. And that's kind of what our business is. Like every day I wake up, look at the email, and there's like at least 10 referrals. And it's because we took the time to build up those partnerships. And what I love about that marketing method is, look, it's not like Facebook ads where once you turn them off, the traffic stops. This is like for life. And essentially what ends up happening is you start to build other products and services with your top partners, because you just figure out, you're like, oh, wow, if you can do this, we can do this. We're both the best at our own thing. If we put it together, it's like of a new value. and then you create a different thing. So either way, and there's no risk. There is no risk. It takes
Right.
time, but there's no money up front or anything. So that's what I would do. And it works for every business. Like what you do, from my understanding, like you could actually partner with all the same people I partner with.
Right.
Yeah, and it would work the same way. So no matter what your business is, if you can sit back and just think like, who would be my top partners that offer complementary services? And through LinkedIn and website reach outs, those are the best way to contact these people, and just build referrals at scale, and you'll be set. If this is obviously saying that you have a good product or service, right? That's the prerequisite.
Right.
But
Right.
if you do, then the way to go to like the moon is to just build like, I plan on trying to build like 1 million partnerships. Like, why not?
Right.
Why
Right.
not?
Yeah. Well, and none of us can do anything. I mean, we don't do anything by ourselves. It may feel like it sometimes, but successful people don't become successful by themselves.
100%.
So yeah, it's really leveraging, the expertise of other people.
Mhm.
So yeah, I love that idea. I can think of so many different businesses that could use a very similar type of model, not just this. So that's a great model. And
Yeah.
it sounds like you've been very successful with it.
Yeah, no, it works. And we'll I'm sure you put like show notes. We'll put the course there somewhere, and people can see like it's crazy how well it works. And I actually think it works for no matter if you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-figure business. It should work
Right.
at any level. But I actually like it the most for people that are in the beginning, because that's where it's the hardest. Because
Right.
that, say if you like have a marketing budget of only 10 grand, that's where it's like the toughest to like, where do I put this? So this scenario puts you in a position where like you don't have to risk your whole marketing budget. Like just do this. So I don't know. That's why I like it, is it doesn't put businesses in a situation where they can like go bankrupt. There's like no chance of that happening.
So if we're talking about an author, then, using that, how does that, you're building these partnerships. How can an author kind of, if someone is, writing their own book, kind of, doing this themselves, how can they maybe leverage some of those same principles?
Yeah, and again, I'll use my own example. And I in the beginning, I didn't plan it out. Like I wasn't aware it was going to unfold like this, but then once I realized it, I just went all in on it. So I wrote the book Conference Crushing, which is how to network at conferences. That's what it's about. So what I started to do is reach out to conference coordinators, and I would be like, hey, like I'll speak at your event. Here's my fee, or you can buy 500 copies of my book and then give it away to all your attendees. And what some of them would do is they would actually buy them and mail them out prior to the event. And then people, very short read, it's like 70 pages. So you could literally read it like on the flight to the conference. And so that was a way of me just being able, I just would Google conferences in Austin, Texas or something. I'd just pick cities, and then I'd find them, I'd reach out to them, have a call with them, explain, and they'd be like, yeah, this is a value add for my attendees, like come speak and I'll buy 100 books or whatever it is. So that's a way. So whatever your book's about, just think about, say your book is on how to grow a business. Let's just say it's about that, using Facebook ads. So you would find, just one example popping in my head, find like business masterminds. So people that are in like masterminds or lead the masterminds, and reach out to them and be like, hey, this is how I grew my business to 8 figures. You coach, or you have a mastermind of business owners that you have in your mastermind. I think if you let me come in and train them, I could add value in that way. Mm-hmm. And here, so that's always thinking about it in that way. And pretty much any topic you can think of, like you were thinking, it should work for anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're making me think about some things now.
Good.
It's a great, I'm hoping the listeners are That's because I'm now my wheels are turning a little bit.
Good.
So yeah,
That's why I love doing
yeah,
this.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
always
This is
thinking
awesome.
like any book, like for the people watching, like any book back there that you could pick out, I bet we could like figure out their partners, like
I was just thinking the same thing. You could really kind of leverage the information that's being shared, the target audience, lots of different things in the book to help to really find the right partners to help with that.
yeah,
That's an awesome idea. I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
of course. No, I'm happy
Yeah.
to. That's awesome.
Yeah. So what else have you got going on? What any new stuff that you have percolating?
So that's kind of the newest. I mean, we've been doing that for probably like a year and a half, 2 years, I'm gonna guess, the infinite partnership system thing. So that's kind of the new thing because we, after we would have a client hit bestseller and then maybe get them some media, that's kind of where it ended. So we were like, okay, how do we like increase our like customer lifetime value? And these people obviously trust us. They're paying us at least 5 figures over everything they purchase. So I'm like, they obviously trust us. We delivered good work. So it's kind of a shame to just be like, all right, see you later. So this infinite partnership system thing, we were like, okay, we have a course, but we also have a scenario where we charge something up front and then take 10% of sales, and we actually do it for them. Right. So, and a lot of people that are at like the 7-8 figure level, they kind of look at it and they're like, okay, I get the concept. I don't want to deal with taking the course. I don't have time for that or whatever it is. So look, I'll just pay it, just do it for me. So that's kind of the thing we're really focused on now, because that's, as long as they're getting results, that's a forever client, which is kind of the goal of any business, is like, how can you serve someone so good that they want to stay and pay you basically forever? So that's what I've been trying to kind of figure out. And I think we have it kind of with this in some sense.
I love that you're thinking long term. There's so many consultants out there that just think of things in chunks. And I love your thinking about, how do you continuously service the clients? That's a great approach.
100%. Yeah. Think about the biggest businesses in the world, like Netflix, they're all like subscription most of the time.
Yeah.
If you have Netflix, like anybody who has Netflix, I, my whole family has it. I've never thought of getting rid of it, and I don't even use it, but it's just kind of become something where it's like, even if I was down to my last dollars, like I'd probably still keep it. It's like obviously if I needed food, I would choose that first. But you know what I mean? Where it's like embedded in our culture.
Yeah.
Like it's just become a part of your life, and they get paid $15 a month from, like, to me, it seems like everyone in the world.
Right.
Like, what a good business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been really great information. I've enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a lot myself. I hope the audience has learned a lot as well. And we'll get that link dropped into the show notes. So if anyone's interested in that course, they can have access to it. So before we go, I always like to ask, what books have inspired you? What one or two books have you read that you've really gotten a lot out of, and you always recommend?
Yeah, so I brought one up earlier. It was Think and Grow Rich, and so it's funny, and I think this happens for a lot of people, is once you find one book that really just like hits you, you go on like a binge. At least that's what happened with me. So that was the second book that I read after the first one was 4-Hour Workweek. And what I mean by, I obviously had read books prior to that, but they were in school when I was younger, and none of them really worked for me. Or meaning like I didn't like them ultimately, but 4-Hour Workweek was just like mind shattering. And that's what actually got me to decide to drop out of college. And then I remember it actually turned into a little bit of a problem with ordering books. I literally remember my floor just being covered, because after I read that and then Think and Grow Rich, I just went on Amazon. I was just like Tony Robbins, like Alan, like Friedrich Nietzsche, like everybody just started buying everything. And but regardless, 4-Hour Workweek for me was the most impactful. And I do not think I'd be where I am today if I hadn't read that, because if I hadn't read it, I probably wouldn't have dropped out at that moment. I think I would have still dropped out eventually, but that was the catalyst. So I highly recommend it. If you haven't read it, it's a great just starting point for a lot of entrepreneurs.
It is a great book, and I love Tim Ferriss. I listen to his podcast. I follow him. He's got some just phenomenal insights.
Yeah. Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah.
100%.
And the other one you mentioned, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. It's been around a long time, but it's one of the standards out there. I mean, it's such great information that just stands the test of time.
It does. When you read it, it's so crazy to think how long ago it was that because you just think to yourself, you're like, this guy, and obviously a lot, he learned it from other people a lot, but like it is so crazy. Like you feel when you're reading it, you're like, this guy could have wrote this yesterday. Like that's what it feels like. And you're like, he was so ahead of his time. Like,
he's like Nostradamus. He really knew. Yeah,
you could be walking around right now. Who knows?
Right. Exactly. Well, again, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to. I'm going to check out the course myself. I want to learn a little bit more about that. It's a great concept. So, but all the information about the bestseller list and using the book to build your business, really, really appreciate it. And I think the audience probably is going to get a lot out of that as well. So great chat. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
All right. So to the audience, thank you so much for joining us. This has been The Author's Way.